Did you know that a brain injury is an invisible injury? Now, joining us today is the Executive Director of the Brain Injury Society of Toronto, Melissa Vigar, and survivor Celia Missios. So, can we talk about a brain injury as an invisible injury? What do you mean by that?
Right. Well, so I guess what we mean by that is a lot of times somebody who has a brain injury, they don't have anything physically wrong with them on the outside. I mean, obviously it's different for every individual, but a lot of times people are struggling internally, and what that can cause is people will judge them based on their appearance and not on what's happening inside. So a lot of our...
Well, you look fine.
Yeah.
You look just fine.
You look fine.
Yeah.
And Celia is kind of a shining example of this.
Celia, you were in a near-fatal car accident, correct?
Correct.
So that was about 10 years ago.
10 years, 2006.
So what were the after effects of that?
I had to learn to walk, to talk. I had a lot of physical injuries, a lot of broken bones, ruptured diaphragm and things like that. The whole impact of the brain didn't really kind of settle in until about a year later. Because you're in denial, and you're just thinking you're going to get better. And then you kind of start going, wait a minute, I'm not functioning, I'm not remembering. Like, I had to learn to speak again. I worked with a speech therapist intensely. And everything, it was just a whole series of relearning. And you don't think about, oh, I'm having to relearn this.
Right.
You're just doing it. And then you look back now, like I look back and I think, oh my gosh, like how far I've come. Like, they didn't think I'd be able to walk or wear heels or do anything. So, you know, I'm very grateful.
Well, it's amazing. You wouldn't know. But that's the problem. That can be the problem. So when we talk about, I mean, June is Brain Injury Awareness Month.
It is.
When we talk about brain injuries, they can be small things. Like I got a friend that's got several concussions from snowboarding. I got another friend that got, you know, a concussion playing hockey. And a concussion is a brain injury, and people have to remember that. They're pretty common, but. You know, is it 50,000 Canadians a year get a brain injury?
50,000 Canadians a year, over 50,000 get a brain injury.
So
yeah.
what's the best route for us to take? If you know, we have a fall, we have an accident, these things happen, what's the first thing that we should do?
We should always go see your doctor.
Yes.
I mean, that's obviously the very first thing you should do. And then do self-monitoring. You know, a lot of times when you have a brain injury, it doesn't matter if it's mild or traumatic, you're going to notice some cognitive changes. And when you notice cognitive changes, those are things you want to speak up about. So you want to monitor your fatigue level, monitor your processing information, your memory. These are things that are common when someone's had a brain injury. And then start a dialogue, start talking about it. So tell your doctor, tell your family that these are the things you're struggling with, because it's internal. It can be pretty isolating. And that's the worst thing that can happen. We don't want people to feel isolated, so that's why.
And it can create depression, anxiety, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
The other thing I want to talk about, and you know, it's such an obvious thing that we've seen so recently is concussions in hockey. And we've recently seen it with, you know, Sidney Crosby jumping back on the ice within a few days of another concussion. Now, I realize that there are varying severities of concussion, so I mean, if he's approved by doctors, you have to hope that somebody's making the right call there. But when you have multiple sustained head injuries, does it compound the problem?
It does. It does. And every time you have a head injury, the risk of having another head injury increases.
Oh.
Because with a head injury, you have issues again with problem solving, insight, judgment, impulse control, balance, mobility issues. So it does put you at a... It can come at it puts you at risk for another injury.
Wow.
Yeah, you get into an environment, like for myself, I look fine, yet if you have a lot of stimulation going on, if there's a lot of noise around me, if I'm having to really focus and think, it's very draining, and you don't realize how draining that is. And that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions is people with, like, I'm very fortunate, I had a great support system, but people with brain injury don't always have that support system. So it becomes, like you were saying earlier, that vicious circle of anxiety, depression. You get depressed, you can't function, you feel isolated, you can't get out. So you need an organization like this to really provide a social opportunity for you to get out. It gives a lot of the members a focus each month, each week to go to.
And a community.
Exactly.
Community. That we're never alone. So what's the BIST website?
www.bis.ca.
And areyouaware.ca is the other one,
Yes,
right?
yes, that's we promote, obviously, brain injury awareness in June.
Okay.
And so we do a big social media campaign, and Are You Aware is where you can get a lot of facts on brain injury, prevention, etc.
Great. So if you want to reach out, you can go to bis.ca or areyouaware.ca. And we're going to throw it up to Mel in the newsroom.